The newest 1.5 update has brought some surprising changes in team building, and these are the 3 biggest considerations for beating the new Spiral Abyss. One of the toughest things Genshin has to offer is the Spiral Abyss, and the way things have been going since the game has been launched, it actually took a lot of players' attention by surprise with its newest cycle that not only manages to shift some of our understandings about what's going to truly matter in this new environment, but also discover some top techniques to clear these new challenging floors. And the first thing that's important to acknowledge would be the Abyss Heralds and Lectors, which we have seen one of them in the 1.4 storyline, but the crazy thing about it is that you actually need to fight 2 of them, which not only means double the trouble, but also the crucial aspect of keeping them under control and close to each other. But before we get into how to best handle these 2 new types of enemies, we need to take a look at what's available for us, since using the strongest 5-star weapons and characters isn't really relatable to the majority of viewers and the player base itself, so showing some free-to-play solutions to this new Abyss cycle is what we're going to focus on if we want to have the best chance at clearing it. And depending on when you're watching this video, there's 2 characters that you can get for free, and that would be Diona from Energy Amplifier event, who's probably one of the most amazing characters MiHoYo could provide us for free, no matter if it's just an extra constellation or the actual character, and that's because Cryo is actually one of the most important elements in the Abyss right now, not just because of the new enemies, but also some other tricky floors we'll get to face. There's also Bennett in the Starglitter shop, which at this point, if you've been keeping up with Genshin content, you know how great our Benny boy is, but surprisingly enough, he's actually going to serve an entirely new function in one of the fights, so grabbing him even at 0 constellations is amazing, but if you can, get him to at least 1st constellation, so you can utilize his damage boost without needing to fulfill those odd health conditions. Finally, there's going to be a couple of characters that don't really need to be built in order to take advantage of what they offer, so even if this is one of the toughest Abyss cycles we've seen, there's still some support and tricks that can help you clear it without needing to rely entirely on damage. And that's the thing about the new Spiral Abyss. The 11th and final floors don't just check for damage, but also tests your understanding of elemental attacks, and from the way things have been going so far, technical mistakes are always going to be the next big thing that keeps you away from either clearing or obtaining more stars, but it also shows how some elements like Cryo or even Electro have become more relevant than ever before, just when you thought that it was Pyro that mattered this whole time. When we're looking at the 11th floor, there's 2 problems we need to solve. The first one would be something that haunts you throughout all the fights, and that would be the slowing waters, which gets continuously emitted in all of the chambers. And getting hit with this Hydro debuff means that anytime you use your skill, while under the effect that's signified by this icon above your health bar, the cooldown duration gets increased by a lot longer than usual, which means less elemental reactions and energy particles that can greatly impact you during the fights. The second problem would be the Abyss Heralds, because when you lower their health to a certain point, they will put on a Hydro shield and you can no longer damage them regularly, so you need to use elemental attacks and reactions to take out their shield, which in return also destroys them. But if you're affected by slowing waters, then that means you get to use less of your elemental skills, which means it will take longer to reduce those shields. That basically ends up as a nasty package combo that we need to solve. So first of all, we need to take care of that Hydro debuff, and the simplest solution would be to use one of the characters that can cleanse this, and that would be either Bennett, Xinyan, or Jean, all of which are great characters, but besides using them, not everyone will have them, and when looking for a less resource-intensive answer, you could also either go for Electro Resonance, that will reduce the time you're afflicted with Hydro by 40%, or if you want to even reduce this debuff time by even shorter amount, you could also equip the Prayers of Destiny Circlet that further chews away Hydro status time by 40%, but this is recommended to use on support characters only, since the Circlet plays a major part in your damage dealer's role, so it's best to have this on someone with a short cooldown on an elemental skill. There's also the sacrificial weapons that you could consider using to bypass the long cooldown. Now the next thing we need to take care of would be those annoying heralds, and there's basically a lot of options you can go for, starting with the power of 1 or 2 Cryo characters like Diona and Rosaria, without mentioning the most obvious one, which is our dear Coco Goat. And the awesome thing about Cryo in this encounter is that when the heralds go into their shield mode, they are constantly under a Hydro status, which means any Cryo attack that gets into contact will result in them getting frozen, which not only chips away at their shield, but also gives you plenty of breathing room to keep them under control. Of course, it's going to take some practice to get these guys clumped together, and that's where Chongyun comes in, who actually can provide you with constant Cryo infusions from his elemental skill. Just keep in mind to pay attention to that pesky flowing water debuff, so you don't accidentally activate the skill and end up with a long cooldown. And don't forget that while you're under his Cryo infusion, you can easily use other characters' skills to speed up that shield destruction. Now besides Besides this, the previously mentioned duo Electro teammates for the resonance bonus is also a great option, and one surprising way you can deal with Herald shields is by using Lisa, since she by default deals electro damage from her normal and charged attacks, and you don't even need to have her build for this, because we only care about reducing their shields, which don't take damage into account. Obviously, this floor rewards you for using physical damage dealers, so our Wolfboy Razor, as well as physical Kaching or Fischl, will thrive in here, but it's also clear that Eula is going to have a field day once she's out and ready to take on this floor. So in essence, Cryo and Electro are surprisingly good on the 11th floor, not to mention the usual utilities Pyro characters can bring to the table, and by using some of the mentioned solutions here, the only things left that will matter are going to be your damage output and how many technical mistakes you're able to avoid. But there are some shocking things we're about to learn in the next and final floor. It's no joking matter when it comes to the final floor of the Abyss, which is going to test your team's survivability as well as shield breaking skills, and the two biggest challenges this floor presents is the second half of the second chamber, where an onslaught of Hydro Mimics will terrorize you, but if that's not enough, a new type of enemy called the Abyss Lector also has a few tricks of their own, and few of the recommended strategies for this particular floor would be to focus on using shield characters or healers in general that will protect you not only from those Hydro Mimics, but also plenty other attacks. Now, of course, these are the main objectives of your team building, but having strong damage dealers has been the usual thing for the final floor, which means you shouldn't stress too much about this final challenge, since at the end of the day, it's still a huge damage check for your team, and it's better to at least first try and clear the chambers without thinking about the stars too much, so you can get a better feel of all the enemy combinations you'll be facing. Now, besides this small pep talk, as mentioned previously, if you're watching this video when Diona is available for free from the Energy Amplifier event, she's definitely someone you want to at least build minimally, because the amount of utility she brings to certain floors, like the one with Hydro Mimics, where you can freeze them and shield yourself, is a godsend to say the least. And when it comes to the Lectors, the strategy is quite similar as with Heralds, except surprisingly enough, even if you would think Cryo would be the most effective element to break their shields, Pyro is actually great at performing this job, so any of your damage dealers from this particular element will be great. Speaking of Pyro, if you have Yanfei or Klee, you can just use their normal and charged attacks to dispatch of their shields, and even Diluc can get the job done quite well, but if we're trying to improvise without these characters, then Benny would be our next adventurer, and by using his burst and standing inside of it, you can perform quick elemental attacks in succession, which not only rebuilds your burst and insane speed, but also heals you from all those nasty Electro attacks. And if you want to take things even further, you can equip on him the Thundering Fury artifact set, which has been known by more adept players for some time, and even though it served a niche purpose, it can basically reduce his elemental skill cooldown below 1 second if you stand in his burst when equipped with the aforesaid bonus. Of course, you could use a combination of Hydro and Cryo characters to keep the Lectors under control with Freeze, but this could also limit your flexibility on other floors. Finally, if you can get past the Lectors, when you're in the second half, make sure to focus Cryo Assistant Mage first because of her shield, and what's even better, the Pyro Fatui agent will try to get into close range within you, so you can group the two of them together before you move on to the annoying Electro Assistant Mage. And that's basically it. There's probably more strategies left unexplored, but even with all the strategies out there, the best one would be to mute the Lector's voice audio from the options, or else you'll get lectured to death from them. It's interesting to see that MiHoYo decided to serve the player base with such a challenging cycle of the Abyss, and even though it hasn't even been a week since this new rotation is in place and this video has been made, there's surely going to be even better strategies out there once more time passes. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting the bell notification on, and don't forget to gently press the like button. For more quick news and guides on Genshin, make sure to follow us on Twitter, link in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.